The body is a very complex series of interconnected systems. The factor that connects these things as well is that poor diet and lifestyle will also suppress the testosterone levels. When we're looking at low testosterone symptoms, things like anxiety, depression, poor sleep quality, lack of energy, sexual dysfunction, not waking up with erections, the problem is that those symptoms can all be caused by poor diet and lifestyle. It's very important to look at the cross-section of symptoms and lab work. The problem with low testosterone symptoms is that they're very broad and very ambiguous. So one thing is that low testosterone symptoms and low thyroid symptoms are virtually identical. So it's always important that we also screen for thyroid dysfunction as well, because that can also be a factor. But when we're looking at low testosterone symptoms, things like anxiety, depression, poor sleep quality, lack of energy, anhedonia, which is where people don't feel pleasure from things that should be pleasurable and enjoyable, lack of focus, lack of motivation, lack of drive, sexual dysfunction, not waking up with erections, things like this. The problem is that those symptoms can all be caused by poor diet and lifestyle. And the factor that connects these things as well is that poor diet and lifestyle will also suppress the testosterone levels. So the body is a very complex series of interconnected systems. And one of the failures of many aspects of healthcare, everything from fitness and nutrition all the way to Western medicine, is that we view everything in isolation. It's like going to 5 different types of mechanics and having them all service one individual component of your car. It doesn't make any sense and it doesn't deliver the best outcome. So the challenge for a practitioner who actually cares about their patients or clients and knows what they're doing is that we have to look at how the individual's feeling, look at their blood work, and say, are these symptoms actually coming from the levels being suboptimal? And if so, are the levels suboptimal in a way that we can't resolve? And there are markers in the blood work that we can look at to see if testosterone production is being suppressed, if the testicles are failing. We can also look at other blood markers to suggest, hey, is this person pre-diabetic? Do they have something like fatty liver disease? Are they eating a garbage diet that's jacking their triglycerides up? We can get a lot of indicators that really give us some good insight on how someone's looking after themselves. But it's also incredibly important, this is why 15-minute doctor's appointments don't work, is that people need to be upfront and disclose all aspects of how they're looking after themselves. Because some people have those symptoms because, they've got a newborn baby and they're an entrepreneur and they're not sleeping properly. Like there can be so many factors that will lead to these symptoms in a transient way. And if you come in and supercharge the engine by cranking up the testosterone levels, if the body's naturally suppressing that system, you're not going to end up with a smooth ride forward. If the body's pumping the brakes and you're pumping the accelerator, you're not working with the body now, you're working against it. So when you go and see someone with these symptoms and comprehensive blood work, it really has to be a skillful practitioner or an expert looking at this to actually make the diagnosis to say, yeah, look, TRT would be in your best interest, or maybe you just need to fix these other factors and see how you go and then come back over time to see if you're feeling better.
Yeah. I definitely want to talk about the landscape of TRT as you see it. Real quick before I forget though, Andrew kept messaging me about this graph that he's seen you illustrate that basically just talks about, lifestyle factors in current day society. Like as people get busier, they have kids, they're young professionals. It's kind of like corresponding with what's happening naturally in the body with testosterone. I don't know if you know what graph he's talking about, but if you do, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Interesting story with that one. So I was emailing the team at the Mark Bell Power Project to ask if I could be a guest for like a year, and never heard back. Totally fine. I'm sure they get a whole bunch of emails. And then when I did my speech at the Silverback Summit, I did this graph the night before in Canva with like squiggly lines that I just I don't have any graphic design skill. And after the speech, Andrew saw my speech and he was like, hey, you need to come on the Power Project and you need to bring that graph. And I was like, well, I need to do the graph a little bit better because the one that I did looks like absolute garbage. So the Power Project came out a couple of days ago. The graph presentation's at the end, but I'll explain it here now. So the way that I look at it, so I'm very interested in behavioral psychology and I'm very interested in neuropsychiatry. So the difference between psychology and psychiatry is more about behavior, mood, emotions, and psychiatry is more about the architecture of the brain and neurotransmission and how this facilitates the psychology of the individual. So I'm very interested in both of these things. And when I did my postgrad, it's called a postgraduate diploma. So you can do a master's in a field that you didn't do your original undergrad in. I did that in biomedical science so that I could do neuropsychiatry to learn how to heal the brain. Turns out psychiatry is just about drugging people. So I dropped out of it pretty quickly. But the reason I got into looking at testosterone was that when you look at it from a psychiatric perspective, testosterone is basically the perfect pharmacological antidepressant for men in terms of how it impacts neurotransmission. So when we look at how testosterone levels work in well, both men and women, but particularly in men, basically you flatline the testosterone up until you hit puberty, and then you get that big spike that everyone's aware of when you're 18 to 21, depending on your development. And then assuming that you look after yourself in a relatively consistent way over the course of your life, you get a relatively linear decline. Women more so get a crash when they hit menopause. Men get more of a really gradual, insidious decline over their lifetime. But it peaks when you're 18 to 21, and then it gradually declines after that. And when we look at how life tends to work, again, assuming that people don't have a traumatic childhood and assuming that things go relatively okay for people, life's pretty cruisy when you're a toddler and when your testosterone's low. You don't have any responsibilities. You're going to school, you're playing video games, hang out with your friends. And then as you get older, there's this increased burden of performance that men have. I think that we really become adults at 30, not at 18. 18-year-old boys are not adults. They can just legally drink and drive. They're not adults. I think men become adults when they hit 30. And then as you get towards your 40s, you're more expected to have some degree of mastery, either over a skill, over yourself, over leading a family, over leading other people. It's expected that a 40 or a 45-year-old man is going to have his shit together, whereas it's kind of acceptable for a 20 to 25-year-old guy to still be like finding himself and goofing around a bit from like a societal standpoint. So as the burden of performance goes up in life, the testosterone levels are there to buffer that. And that all works out pretty well. And then as the testosterone levels go down over time, the burden of performance also goes down, because as you get older, you've built your family, you've built your legacy, you can kind of sit back, put your feet up, retire, and chill out. The problem that we're having, though, is that that burden of performance in society hasn't gone away. Absolutely not. But if the testosterone levels are peaking at half of where they were before, all of a sudden now the burden of performance for men is still up here, but the testosterone levels are at that 70-year-old level when you're 20 or 21, and it's all downhill. So the problem that I think and what I see is that we have these younger guys who don't have the biological foundation to buffer them against the stresses of life. Because when we look at what testosterone does internally in terms of your biology, but also in terms of your psychology, it buffers against the effects of stress. So things are still difficult in life when you've got higher testosterone levels, but that challenge of pushing outside your comfort zone feels better. I think it's Andrew Huberman who says that testosterone makes effort feel good. And that's a very good way to summarize how it works, because it facilitates dopamine transmission, which is like our pleasure neurotransmitter, but it buffers and offsets for a lot of the activity of cortisol and adrenaline in the body. And when we look at what leadership is, which I think if people say, well, what is masculinity? Masculinity is leadership. Is testosterone creates the capacity to develop leadership, because leadership is being cool, calm, and collected and rational in stressful situations that would overwhelm other people. That's what leadership is. So if men are lacking that leadership and that drive and that ability to push outside their comfort zone and make something of themselves in the early phases of their life, I think it can be quite challenging, demoralizing, guilt-inducing, anxiety-inducing to get into your 30s and 40s and feel like you're behind the eight ball, feeling like you don't have something to show for it, feeling like you're still a shadow of who you should be. Even when you're trying your hardest and doing everything right, you're feeling fatigued and tired and drained like a 50-year-old when you're 30. And I think how that impacts the trajectory of where you end up and the life you can ultimately live is very sad. And I think that that can lead people to developing and living a depressive life, which ultimately resolves in a depressive mental health disorder. So It's more so looking at this idea that if testosterone is not there to create the foundation for someone to deal with the challenges of development in life, that as a result, they can get very easily overwhelmed, they can become avoidant, they can become passive and complacent, and they can become almost a victim of their circumstances. And I see that play out, and I think it can be devastating.
Yeah, it's unsettling how much more rampant the use of antidepressants, SSRIs, and things of that nature have become. I mean, like I know so many people that are on them now. And it's like I don't recall any of that 10 years ago. Um, you also make a good argument with that for like kids, adolescents, teenagers having more hardship and responsibility bestowed upon them at an earlier age to kind of just build that foundation up while their natural levels are significantly higher, which is also totally counter to our system as it sits currently. I mean, kids go to high school, which is super chill. Then they go to college, which is also typically pretty chill. They may be broke, but like there's not that much responsibility. And they graduate college and they go, maybe corporate America, who knows? But there's not generally a ton of responsibility until 30s and beyond, from what I've seen in general day to day society. So,
It was interesting when I was at university. I mean, at every point that you're at in life, you're probably dealing with the hardest challenges that you've developed in terms of like, where you're at. I remember year 12 exams seemed like the end of the world. Looking back on that, that was just a piece of cake. University seemed really challenging when you've got all these assessments and deadlines and you're working a part-time job. But at the end of the day, the burden of performance and the responsibility is so low. And one of the things I see a lot of guys really struggling with, especially when they start to have a family before they've learned to look after themselves properly, which I think a lot of the time can be a real challenge and sometimes a mistake as well if they're not ready for it. But when you become an adult, and especially if you're running a business or you're providing for a household, there's only 24 hours in a day. You need to sleep for about 7 to 9 of those hours. And if you're not effectively managing your time for the rest of it, you don't have the resources to work a fulfilling career, look after your health and fitness, and also have healthy relationships and healthy spiritual development as well. So a lot of the time people get very overwhelmed with realizing just how much execution and planning goes into proper self-care. Because if you're managing your nutrition, managing your training, and you're working 40 hours a week, you don't really have time to get wasted on a Saturday night and be hungover all day Sunday. And for the guys who continue to do that as they get older into their 30s and 40s, they're really behind the eight ball. And that's when things can start catching up with them. So when you don't have that internal drive and energetic resources of having a good energy metabolism, which is also supported by the endocrine system, it can be very difficult to live a life that is not overwhelmingly stressful and still have something to show for it at the end of the day.
yeah, completely agree.